started like any ordinary day on the train. People were reading, scrolling, lost in their own worlds. But then Bolo Yeung noticed him. Keanu Reeves. Calm. Composed. Not flashy. Not showing off. Just there. Bolo smirked. He loved a challenge. He loved testing strength. And today he thought he found the perfect target. "Hey," Bolo called out, stepping closer, voice dripping with mockery. "You think you can just walk around like that? Who do you think you are?" Keanu didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even move a muscle. He just looked at Bolo. Quiet. Intense. The people around them sensed it immediately. Something was different. Bolo laughed. Loud, confident, overconfident. He flexed, showed his fists. "I don't take kindly to people thinking they're special." Keanu Reeves' calm was unsettling. There was no fear. No reaction. Just steady, piercing eyes. Bolo, fueled by ego, went further. He tried to humiliate Keanu in front of the whole train, mocked his outfit, mocked his face, mocked his silence. "Do you even know who I am?" Keanu finally said, voice low, almost a whisper, but it cut through the noise like a blade. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Phones went up. Whispers started. And in that moment, Bolo Yeung made a mistake he would never forget. Comment below if you've ever seen someone underestimate a quiet person. You know it never ends well. The train rattled along the tracks, but inside, time seemed to slow. Everyone could feel it, the tension between Keanu Reeves and Bolo Yeung. Bolo stood tall, chest out, muscles flexing. He had dominated every fight, every room he walked into. He was used to being feared. He thrived on it. And yet, something about Keanu, something about that calm, unwavering gaze made him uneasy. Keanu didn't move, didn't speak. He simply stood, hands relaxed at his sides, aura quiet but powerful. He was like a still lake, hiding a storm beneath the surface. "You think you're untouchable?" Bolo finally sneered, stepping closer. The other passengers shifted uncomfortably. Some grabbed their phones, sensing this was about to get ugly. "I'm not here to fight," Keanu replied calmly. His voice didn't rise, but every word carried weight. "I just want to get where I'm going." Bolo laughed, a deep, mocking sound. "You've got some nerve, walking around like you own the place expecting respect. You're nothing here." The words hung in the air, but Keanu's expression didn't change. In fact, the more Bolo tried to intimidate him, the calmer Keanu appeared. A few nearby passengers tried to intervene, whispering nervously, but they stopped themselves. They felt it, the unspoken energy, the quiet power that made even Bolo hesitate. Bolo, frustrated, decided to escalate. He pushed his chest forward, leaned in, and spat out, "You're just another wannabe! I've beaten legends, and you'll be no different!" Keanu tilted his head slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Sometimes the loudest threats come from the weakest," he said, voice low, cutting through the tension like a knife. The entire train went silent. The usual clatter of conversations, phones, and footsteps vanished. Every passenger was watching, holding their breath. Bolo's ego flared. How dare someone so calm, so ordinary, make him feel small? He raised his fists. He flexed harder, trying to dominate the space, trying to force fear. But Keanu didn't flinch, didn't move, didn't even blink. His calmness wasn't weakness, it was strength, pure, unshakable. And in that silence, Bolo Yeung realized he had underestimated him. Keanu Reeves wasn't just any man. He was the kind of person who let others think they had power. And then, when the moment was right, he showed them what true strength looked like. The train felt smaller, tighter, the air thick, and everyone watching knew. It was only a matter of time before Bolo would regret challenging Keanu Reeves. Comment below, would you challenge someone like Keanu? Or would you quietly step aside? The train rattled on, but inside the world had narrowed to one tense corridor. Keanu Reeves stood perfectly still, his calm aura radiating like a shield. Bolo Yeung, on the other hand, fumed. His ego had taken a hit and he was desperate to reclaim control. "Come on," Bolo barked, stepping closer, fist clenched. "Show me what you got!" "Don't just stand there acting like you're untouchable." Keanu's eyes, steady and piercing, met Bolo's glare. "You don't need to prove anything to me," he said softly. "But you clearly feel the need to prove yourself to everyone else." The passengers around them held their breath. Some whispered nervously. Phones popped up, recording every second. Nobody wanted to move, but nobody could look away. Bolo's face twisted in frustration. "You think you're smarter than me, stronger than me. I've been feared everywhere I go." He took a step closer, the scent of sweat and adrenaline filling the air. Keanu didn't flinch. Instead, he shifted just slightly, a subtle movement, almost invisible, but it was enough to make Bolo hesitate. His instincts screamed this man was different. "You know," Keanu said, his voice calm but cold, "real strength doesn't come from muscles. It comes from control, from patience, from knowing when to act and when not to." Bolo's chest heaved, his jaw clenched. His fist shook not from fear but from anger. The more he tried to assert dominance, the more powerless he felt. And then, in a flash, he made his move. He swung fast and aggressive, trying to catch Keanu off guard. Keanu stepped aside, not with a dramatic dodge, but with absolute precision. Every movement was minimal, effortless. Bolo's punch missed by inches, the sound of air cutting through the corridor echoing like a gunshot. The train fell silent again. Eyes widened. Mouths gaped. Even hardened commuters couldn't hide their astonishment. "You see," Keanu said, calmly, "violence is loud because it's afraid. It screams to cover weakness. But calm is unshakable." Bolo froze, chest heaving. Sweat dripped down his temple. For the first time, he realized this wasn't a fight he could win. Not with his strength. Not with his ego. Some passengers dared to speak, their voices trembling. "He's not even trying to fight back," one whispered. How is he so calm? Keanu didn't answer. He simply stood there, the very definition of controlled power. And in that moment, the entire train seemed to recognize it. The bystanders, once invisible to Bolo's intimidation, now became witnesses to something far greater: true respect. Bolo's face twisted in rage, humiliation burning through him. He was used to fear, to submission, but here none of it existed. Just silence, just observation, just the quiet storm that was Keanu Reeves. Then came the final straw. Keanu, still calm, took a single step forward, not threatening, not aggressive, and said, "Your anger doesn't make you strong. It makes you predictable." The words struck Bolo harder than any punch could. He staggered back, fumbling with his composure. The other passengers, sensing the shift, started murmuring in awe, some even applauding quietly. Bolo Yeung realized too late that he had underestimated the quiet one. The one who didn't need to shout, didn't need to swing, didn't need to prove anything. Keanu's presence alone commanded respect. And in that charged, electric moment, the truth was clear. Arrogance, ego, and intimidation could never match calm strength and inner control. Keanu Reeves didn't yell, he didn't fight, he didn't need to. He simply existed. And that was enough to dismantle Bolo Yeung's bravado in front of everyone. Comment below, could you face someone like Keanu without flinching? Or would you run? The train was quiet now. Not the polite, everyday quiet, but a tense, frozen silence. Every passenger's eyes were fixed on Keanu Reeves and Bolo Yeung, two men in a standoff that had transformed the ordinary train ride into something extraordinary. Bolo's chest heaved. Sweat dripped down his temples, his muscles trembling not from effort but from frustration. His intimidation had failed. Every trick, every flex, it meant nothing to Keanu. Keanu, on the other hand, remained calm, the kind of calm that didn't just fill a room, it dominated it. His hands were relaxed at his sides. His eyes, steady and piercing, scanned the silent crowd. Not with pride, not with arrogance, but with awareness. A young woman, barely 18, whispered to the person next to her, "Hey, he doesn't even look like he's trying." "How is that possible?" An older man muttered under his breath. "I've seen fighters, champions even, but he's different. He doesn't need to fight to command respect." Bolo stomped his foot. He tried to shout, tried to regain control. "Enough of this!" I said, "I'm not scared of you." But no one flinched. Not the commuters, not the elderly woman clutching her handbag, not the teenager with headphones dangling around his neck. The only sound was the train moving on the tracks and the faint, steady rhythm of Keanu's breathing. "You're loud," Keanu said quietly, voice calm, deliberate. "You scream, you try to control. But it's fear that makes people loud. Strength is quiet." Bolo froze. He opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. He realized that his anger, his bluster, and his bravado meant nothing here. Nothing at all. A man in a suit raised his phone, shaking as he recorded the scene. "This is insane," he whispered. He's not even moving, and Bolo looks defeated. And then came the subtle gestures, the small reactions of the crowd that made the moment unforgettable. An elderly woman nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if acknowledging a truth she'd always known. A teenager whispered, He's the real deal." Even the train conductor, normally distant and busy, paused and leaned forward, curious eyes glued to the unfolding scene. Bolo finally tried one last intimidation tactic. He flexed, muscles bulging, chest puffed out. "You think you can scare me?" he barked.
"You're nothing."
Keanu's eyes didn't even twitch. Calmly, he stepped forward just a fraction, enough that Bolo instinctively recoiled. The movement wasn't aggressive, it was deliberate, measured, almost surgical. "You're loud because you're scared," Keanu said softly, his voice carrying over the hushed murmurs of the crowd. Fear tries to convince itself its power. The passengers exchanged glances. Phones were raised everywhere, capturing this moment for the world to see. A few whispered, "This is legendary. I can't believe it." Bolo's face drained of color. His confidence, once unshakable, was gone. He realized in front of everyone, that he had misjudged the man in front of him. Keanu wasn't just calm. Keanu wasn't just strong. Keanu was untouchable not because of his fists, but because of his presence. The train seemed to shrink around them. Every bystander, from the elderly woman to the businessman to the teen in ripped jeans, felt the same truth: this was not a fight for strength, but a lesson in character. Keanu didn't raise his voice. He didn't swing a hand. He didn't need to. He simply existed, and that existence silenced fear, humbled arrogance, and awed everyone watching. Bolo Yeung, for the first time in his life, felt powerless, and the crowd, once merely spectators, became witnesses to something far greater than a fight, a demonstration of true composure, respect, and quiet strength. Comment below: would you stay calm like Keanu under pressure, or would you crumble under someone else's quiet power? The train had fallen into an almost surreal silence. Every passenger, every eye, every phone was locked onto the two figures at the center, Keanu Reeves and Bolo Yeung. But just as Bolo's ego had collapsed, the moment took an even more shocking turn. Keanu didn't rush. He didn't yell. He simply reached into his pocket, pulled out a small card, and handed it to a nearby commuter. The man looked at it, confused, then at Keanu, then back at the card. His eyes widened. "Excuse me," the man whispered. "Is this real?" Before anyone could react, the train doors slid open at the next station. 3 men in tailored black suits stepped inside, moving quickly but with absolute precision. Their presence alone commanded attention, and the passengers instinctively stepped aside. "Mr. Reeves," one of them said respectfully, voice calm but firm. "Apologize for the delay. We need to escort you." Bolo Yeung froze, his jaw dropped. His fists, which had been clenched moments ago, now hung uselessly at his sides. The crowd began murmuring. Phones zoomed and eyes widened. Everyone could sense that something monumental was unfolding. "Escort me," Bolo spat, disbelief turning into panic. Who are you?" One of the men turned slowly to Bolo and, in the most casual but devastating tone, said, "He's the owner. The majority shareholder. This is his company. This train, and now this situation, all of it is under his authority." Bolo's face went pale. He stepped back, almost tripping over his own feet. "Wait, you're the owner." Keanu Reeves nodded slightly, calm as ever, his piercing gaze now settling on Bolo like a quiet storm ready to consume arrogance. "You judge me by what you saw: my clothes, my calm, my quiet," Keanu said. "That was enough for you to think you had power over me. That was enough to make you underestimate me." A hush fell over the train. The passengers, who had been tense and curious, now collectively gasped. Phones clicked. People whispered. Every recording captured the disbelief on Bolo's face. "You thought your strength, your intimidation, your loudness would define the outcome." Keanu continued, voice steady, controlled, unshakable. "But real authority, real respect, doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It simply exists." Bolo's chest heaved. Sweat glistened on his temples. He realized painfully that his entire worldview had been shattered in mere minutes. The very man he thought he could intimidate had been untouchable all along, not because of strength, but because of presence, composure, and wisdom. The crowd started whispering again, some even cheering quietly. One young woman said, almost reverently, "I've never seen anyone like him, just calm." Keanu turned slightly toward the passengers, letting the moment sink in. Respect is not given, it's felt, and you don't earn it by shouting, by flexing, or by fear. You earn it by being steady, by being fair, by being yourself. Bolo finally slumped back, a man humbled before a storm he hadn't seen coming. The very arrogance that had defined him moments ago now felt small and meaningless. The men in suits escorted Keanu off the train. Phones recorded every step. Whispers turned into stunned chatter. Passengers replayed the scene in their heads, realizing they had just witnessed more than a confrontation. They had witnessed a lesson in power, humility, and respect. As the doors closed behind Keanu, one voice from the crowd shouted, "He didn't even fight, and he won everything." Keanu Reeves' presence lingered long after he was gone. The silence that had held the train captive transformed into awe. People whispered, shared videos, and replayed the encounter in their minds, trying to process what had just happened. And for Bolo Yeung, the lesson was unforgettable: appearances deceive, intimidation fails, and true strength, quiet, controlled, and unwavering, cannot be challenged. Comment below: could you face someone like Keanu without flinching? Or would you crumble under quiet power? The train doors closed behind Keanu Reeves, leaving a stunned crowd in a silence heavier than any roar could create. Even Bolo Yeung remained frozen in place, realizing the full weight of what had just happened. His arrogance had been dismantled not with fists, but with presence, calm, and undeniable authority. Keanu didn't turn back. He walked with measured steps toward the waiting black vehicle, the men in suits flanking him like shadows. Every eye in the train followed him, every whisper a mix of awe and disbelief. People replayed every moment in their minds, the calm, the gaze, the effortless control. But Keanu wasn't done teaching lessons. Before he stepped fully into the vehicle, he turned slightly and addressed the passengers who had witnessed everything firsthand. "One person treated me with respect," he said, voice calm but resonant, even when fear and judgment were all around. "That matters." Heads turned to an elderly woman near the front of the train. Her hands were folded in front of her, eyes wide but gentle. She had not intervened aggressively, not mocked, not fled. She had simply acknowledged Keanu with quiet respect. "That's the kind of courage that deserves reward," Keanu continued. "Not arrogance, not loudness, not fear disguised as power." Bolo Yeung's chest heaved, and for the first time, he understood the lesson. All his strength, all his intimidation, meant nothing when measured against integrity and quiet authority. Keanu gestured to the woman. "You will lead in situations like this. Calm, fair, observant, and respected by those around you." A ripple of applause started in the train car. At first soft, almost hesitant, then louder, stronger until it echoed through the corridor. People were clapping not for spectacle, but for recognition of justice done. For witnessing humility triumph over ego. For understanding that power isn't loud, it's felt. Bolo slumped into a seat, his hands covering his face. Sweat, rage, and humiliation mixed into a single heavy realization. He had been outclassed in a way he couldn't fight. The lesson would stay with him forever. Keanu Reeves stepped fully into the black vehicle, the doors closing behind him. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. The effect of his presence lingered, imprinted on everyone who had been there. Calmness had won. Respect had been recognized. Arrogance had been dismantled. As the train moved on, passengers whispered, recorded, and shared the encounter, their excitement tinged with a newfound understanding. They had witnessed something rare: strength without violence, authority without ego, and justice without theatrics. Keanu Reeves had left the train not as a conqueror, but as a teacher. Not as a man to be feared, but as a force to be respected. And for those who had judged, underestimated, or doubted him, like Bolo Yeung, they would carry the lesson with them forever. Comment below. Have you ever underestimated someone based on appearance? Could you stay calm like Keanu under pressure?